Hey Robin, thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Robin Rhode. I'm a contemporary artist and welcome to my studio in Berlin. Please follow me. So I shot this on Super 8 film. This is around 2007 already I shot this. I kind of was always trying to evoke memories of my time growing up in this area in Johannesburg. So this became the first time that I was actually investigating train lines and train tracks as a kind of memory, as a kind of an investigation into like the transportation of masses of people from one place to the next. This idea of how the train in South Africa becomes the escape from the rural lands to the city. And I watched this series of films recently, and it triggered my interest with tracing memory almost. And you know, even though I'm a South African and I don't have the historical link to Berlin or to Germany as such, I love this idea of how I could still retrace the tracks, and that in the instance of my work for Studio Berlin, the tracks become quite abstract. On operating train lines, if you hold the tracks, if you hold it like this, you shock like that.
Ah, you mean like electric?
Yeah, you get like a Baltic, you shock.
Ah.
It's quite dangerous, yeah, but you get like a kick like that. The work that I have included in the exhibition Studio Berlin is inspired by these train tracks, and I was trying to figure out a way to trace the kind of memory and history of these tracks, but at the same time trying to animate it in some way so that its form becomes something else. Its form evokes branches of a tree or trees in a forest. So I love this idea of taking elements of our reality and trying to somehow abstract that and give it a new meaning. So the drawings that I have in Berghain are actually produced using oil crayon, and it's basically an oil crayon rubbing of these tracks that we see in front of us. And I actually tried to find this corner over there in the drawing. Very hard, but yeah. Are you guys still looking for me? Are you looking for me, guys? I'll pay the fine. You know, it's about a challenge too, like, how can I challenge my own memory of a place? How it can evoke past works, or, you know, like this film that I showed you this morning. So this summer takes me back to that film. And me, you know, wandering along train lines in Johannesburg. And even as a kid, I would play along the train tracks, and in a way, without me being too nostalgic, I do like to somehow, now that I'm living in Berlin for so many years, I always try and find these kind of parallel ideas when it's either my experience growing up in South Africa, or a project that I've produced in the past, and how what I do today somehow relates to that past, but how what I do today can become something new as well. For me, in terms of my development and evolution as an artist, I painted all the walls myself. I'm very proud to say that I killed my back doing that. But I wanted to so much try and convert my studio into an exhibition space or in a gallery space. After 4 or 5 months of working, I thought, let me exhibit these, let me install these as if they were in an exhibition, so I can see, I can have a more physical understanding of it. Like, how does it hold itself? How does each one become a fragment? I call them fragment paintings anyway. So it's interesting to see like how it begins to vibrate, in some way. So
yeah. And is it a substitute for missing out on international art exhibitions?
It's definitely a substitute in terms of work productions and not being able to go out there, because usually I do a lot of work on location. But I think it was a very, very healthy substitute, because it allowed me to obviously be grounded in Berlin in my studio during the COVID-19 time, and it allowed me to explore drawing differently to what I'd done before. I believe in the potential of drawing. Like, drawing can change, and drawing can go through revolutions and so forth. Drawing can conquer in some way, can go to the next phase. And this was a challenge for me to see like how far I could push drawing for myself. What is the potential of drawing? How can it manifest in different ways? And for it to manifest in a different way, you have to take risks. You have to take chances. And you have to like dive into the unknown. And that's kind of what I did in the studio during this last month. To see how I can just dive into the unknown and see what I can bring back up with me, Just to speak a bit more about these paintings. Yes. So it's inspired by this little book of poetry. It's called Fragments in the Sun. It's by South African poet Eso Patel, who passed away in 2007. But it's inspired by, as you can see, Fragment 4 and so forth, right? So now it's also inspired by these graphic drawings, these graphic figurative drawings that was created by my first art teacher, Clifford Charles, in the late 90s. But this book of poetry, it's a very tough reading. It's dealing with the trauma of the apartheid experience. It's dealing with police brutality. It's dealing with a lot of police violence and so forth. And again, the notion of parallel, seeing this, reading this content, and looking at what was happening in the United States in the Black Lives Matter movement, that it was also coming, arising now during this COVID-19 period. I felt that this was a very interesting, more than interesting body of work to create, inspired by this book. So I think right now, like one of the leading discourses in art is the black body. It's like a kind of a dominant theme right now in the art world. And as with these sketches and drawings, it's again the body under trauma. And my idea was to somehow engage with this notion of the black body, but in a very abstract vocabulary, in an abstract way, so that the body exists, but at the same time is non-existent. It's like abstracted. So I'm trying to shift away from the idea of figuration towards a non-figuration. I'm trying to shift away from the idea of representation to a non-representation. And I can only do that through abstraction. In terms of the philosophical references, in terms of literary references, I found myself always focusing too much on European history. And over the last years, I'm trying to go against that now, and I'm trying to monumentalize the authors from my own country, and to use that as my inspiration, and see where that can take me, because I can relate to all of that stuff. You know, so I like this idea of art having some kind of humanitarian link, that it's not just a kind of a concept, it's not just a design, but it's actually linked to lived experiences or like a struggle. I remember as a student, I was in the drawing class, maybe second year of studies, and the lecturer comes in and he says to all of us, he just shouts, "Where's your struggle? Where's your struggle?" I can't see your struggle. And he just walks out. And I always remembered that. I actually wrote it down immediately in my notebook. I was like, where is your struggle? It's got to be suffering. It's got to be a struggle when you make work. It's not just a luxury item. It's got to be something more. So even if I have to go back 25 years or something, I need to be conscious of a struggle, but I can also depict the struggle in a very light way.